Hi, I'm Carol Livingston at Dynamics Connections, and on this week's ISV Talks, our guest is Whit Lester, who's the VP of Sales of Primo Payday. Primo Payday for US and Canadian payroll is the one true integrated payroll solution for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Next up is Whit. So today on ISV Talks, we have Whit Lester, who's the VP of Sales at Primo Payday. So thank you, Whit, for being a guest here on Dynamics Connections ISV Talks. And we're super excited to have you today as a guest.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So Whit, tell me a little bit about yourself and just a little bit about your company and your products.
Sure. I'm Whit Lester, VP of Sales for Primo Payday and our previous version called Nav Payroll. We started in 2017 with an older version of Business Central called Microsoft Nav, and we had solutions available for Nav 2017 all the way back to Nav 2013. And then in 2018, we released Nav Payroll 2018 as an extension, which made it pretty easy for us to roll that solution over to the Business Central environment. And so now we have Business Central on-premise and cloud versions available of the application as well for any version of Business Central that might be deployed. And those solutions are available for the US and for Canada. I'm one of the only payroll apps that I'm aware of that offers that option for US and Canadian payroll.
Yeah, that's true. So you do both US and Canada. That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about what you've seen in the channel, especially this past year with the pandemic. What kind of trends and challenges are you seeing?
Sure. So the two big trends we're seeing, one is the migration of GP customers to Business Central. Seems like it's starting to trickle in. We're starting to see more GP clients that are looking for an integrated payroll solution within the Business Central ERP system for companies that are transitioning to Business Central. But then the other big trend we're starting to see is currently only 30%, give or take, of all businesses, all US businesses, manage payroll internally, and the rest of them outsource their payroll requirements to ADP, Paychex, companies like that. And we're starting to get more inquiries from companies that are looking to transition from outsourcing payroll to bring it in-house as a cost-cutting measure. I would assume, I'm not an economist, but inflation and those sorts of things seem to be starting to have an impact on margins.
So everything is going up, right? Yeah. So you got to stay wherever you can. So yeah, bringing payroll in-house is a great idea because, why not? You're still responsible for the taxes, for the reporting. So why not have more control of that? And plus the other thing I like about in-house payroll is that you don't have to be on a schedule. Like when you work with a payroll service, that they force you to be on some schedule, and then it's like, oh, if you don't get it on Wednesday, you're not going to pay by Friday kind of thing. So do you have some more flexibility around the solution being in-house?
Certainly. Big picture, the benefits of managing your payroll internally is you have more control over your processes. You have more flexibility in the reporting and then what kind of reports you want to see when you want to see them. And then access to your data, being able to leverage your payroll data to drill into labor costs or get really accurate job costing analytics. Those are all the main benefits of internal payroll versus outsourcing it.
Okay. So are there any new things you're looking to introduce or add value to help customers on their journey to the cloud?
As far as journey to the cloud, from a payroll standpoint, the way that we've built the product is to make it as configurable as possible versus having to customize everything in the system when we do deployments. And that's a really big benefit in the Business Central environment, just because it's not as easy to customize a Business Central payroll system as it is to customize a NAV payroll system. So having those configurable features allow us to, we can typically get the customer where they want to be, customizing 2, 3, or 4% in some cases of what they need, as opposed to 10 or 15%.
You're fully compatible with Business Central. So are you listed on AppSource?
We are. We are on AppSource. You can look us up via Primo Payday. We were one of the first payroll apps on AppSource for the U.S. and Canada, obviously. So we're constantly updating the page the storefront. We're constantly updating the storefront and trying to make sure we have relevant material that partners and end users can use to get an idea to basically shop a product before they get more ensconced in personal demos and things like that.
So that's a good point. You were one of the first apps out there for Business Central, so you guys are on top of it. So
we were one of the first payroll apps for Business Central, and we're, from what we gather, we're one of the biggest, which should give you an idea. But it's one of the biggest apps on AppSource currently. I mean, there's a whole lot of facets of payroll. People don't necessarily realize it, but when you deal with unions and things like that, it can get really, really complex. So there's a lot of pieces in the solution to help us configure it to meet your, as an end user's, specific requirements and meet your process requirements as a company.
So tell me a little bit about, how did the name Primo Payday come about? Is that something kind of unique? Like it was NAV payroll, right? So that's pretty clear what that is. NAV, it's payroll.
It was NAV payroll, and I'd love to sit here and tell you that we spent thousands of marketing dollars in focus groups determining Primo Payday, but the reality is, because we were not to toot my own horn too much, but because we were so ahead of the curve as far as getting our app available and published on AppSource, there was a period of time back in 2019 where, as we were ramping up the app to get it on AppSource, we were getting new guidance from Microsoft like every few weeks about, this is something you have to get your app published. Now this is something you have to get your app published. Now you've got to test 90% of your code units. Now you got to do this. So we kept thinking we were ready to publish, and then some new rule would come out from Microsoft of what we had to do. One of those rules revolved around the branding. So we were going to do NAV payroll for Business Central. We were ready. We had to make a marketing video. You have to make marketing material, and we did spend plenty of money on that. And then we were ready to publish the app, and Microsoft released new guidance that said you cannot use old brand names. You have to use you cannot use old Microsoft brand names, and you have to reference Microsoft. You have to call it Microsoft Dynamics Business Central initially in any of your marketing material. That's at least what they said.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, so we have all this material for NAV that references NAV, and we have to change all of it. And so then we just started, we basically just started trying to find URLs that made sense. And I went on like this tangent of looking up like Latin names, thinking that would sound smart. And then we found Primo Payday, which had it seemed to have a nice ring to it, and it seemed to have an affordable URL that we could pivot to pretty quickly. And we mainly just wanted to get the app on AppSource, and figured if it was a crummy name and nobody liked it, we could change it. And it
seems to stick. It's strong. I think a lot of people do relate to it. It says payroll, and Primo sounds pretty strong. It's like,
it was either that or like Alpha Payroll. Primo's had a nice ring to it.
Yeah. No, I think it was you did a good job. It's interesting. I didn't know about the Microsoft requirements. That sounds like that's probably in the beginning of AppSource, they had probably a lot of things that they were trying to focus on. So makes sense. So do you focus solely on payroll, or what about HR applications and products?
It was our understanding from Microsoft, at least over the past several years, that Microsoft was trying to make inroads into the Business Central HR space and kind of provide solutions to fit that gap. As far as we can tell, that really hasn't fully happened yet. So we do focus specifically on payroll. We do have some features within our payroll solution that kind of bridge the gap into somewhat of the HR space. For example, you can track HR codes, which we can have in our system trigger certain reports that you may want to look at. We can track employee certifications in the payroll system. You can track qualifications in the payroll system. And then we have an optional employee web portal. And the employee web portal would allow employees to log in through the internet, and they could download pay stubs, they could submit time off requests, they could make changes to their personal information.
Especially in this remote world, something self-service like that, a portal, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really helpful. It fits the need for about 40% of our customers. And then the rest of them, we've got about 3 customers out of close to 200 now that actually meet full-on HRIS requirements. And in that situation, we've integrated. We've built integrations with several different HR solutions so far. One of them being Microsoft Talent, one being Elevate HR, and one being Bamboo HR. So we can be very flexible as far as plugging in the payroll piece to a broader HR system. So far, the only limitation has been just the tools that the customers want to use as their HR system, and we can leverage that data that's necessary to calculate payrolls.
Kind of best of breed kind of a solution approach. I like that. Is there any, I guess maybe tell me a little bit about the timesheets and how people would enter their time or time clock kind of solution.
Okay. From a timekeeping standpoint, we focus specifically on payroll. We feel it gives the end user and the partner a lot more flexibility as far as being able to find the best solution for their specific customers' requirements. So when it comes to entering time, we have made the system as flexible as possible to be able to accept data from timekeeping data from pretty much any source. The one limitation is the timekeeping system to either be entering your time into Business Central, so maybe you're posting time to the jobs module or via timesheets, in which case we have reports that we can just pull that data into payroll. Or if you want to use some other timekeeping system, that timekeeping system just has to be able to export data in a CSV or text file, and that's pretty much all of them. And then we can either help you make that a manual process or an automated process, depending on what the customer is trying to achieve. But we've done some pretty cool stuff with time. And then once we actually have the time in the payroll system, then the payroll system can run calculations to automate applying rates if you have rate differentials, or we can help calculate overtime based on any number of complex requirements that may be in play. So there's a lot of cool things we can do at the time once we capture it, and we've tried to make it relatively seamless to bring that time into payroll.
Great. That sounds easy. Do you have any specific industries that you work with or specialize in? Like, is there, certain industries like food or manufacturing or what?
Sure. Within what we're finding is that generally the only industries Primo Payday is limited to is based on the industries that Business Central is being deployed within. Up until the beginning of 2020, we had a high percentage of customers that were in manufacturing, and specifically food manufacturing. I presume that partially is due to the fact there's a fair amount of food manufacturing customers that were on NAV and upgrading to Business Central. But we're starting to see a lot more inroads in staffing companies, which I think is partially because we have more GP customers that are starting to slowly transition to Business Central. That being said, within the different verticals that we're starting to see more of, we do have certain feature sets that seem to be more popular with those with those groups. So for example, if you're a government contractor, then our job costing capabilities, are going to be a very hot topic when it comes to selling the system and getting people to commit. When you are a food manufacturer or a food harvester, then our labor costing tools and the ability to post labor costs directly to the item ledger becomes a really popular topic of conversation.
Because your system does post those payroll details directly to the GL and Business Central, right?
Yes, ma'am. And then we can pit the fact that the payroll data is within the ERP system basically gives you complete flexibility as far as taking that data and applying it where you want it within the ERP system as well. So not just the GL, but once again, are we posting the item ledger so we can drill into labor costs and things like that. Having access to that data can give you a lot of access and a lot of visibility into what's happening within the business.
That sounds really powerful, actually, to get your labor costs. That's a big component for many businesses. So, is there one trend you're seeing in the space that are driving customers or partners to talk with you?
I would say the overarching themes that are driving customers to talk to us is there's three themes. One, having an integrated payroll system is the main one. As more and more companies begin upgrading to Business Central or transitioning to Business Central, the ones that need integrated payroll, the ones that want payroll are looking for it to be integrated. The GP transition of customers going, not all GP customers are moving to Business Central, but there seems to be, a fair amount of them that are. And so that is driving kind of a trend because GP customers are more comfortable with having an integrated payroll system. So they kind of expect it. So that's certainly a factor. And then the third is the transition from outsourcing payroll to in-house. I mean, it's not like everyone who's outsourcing payroll is now switching to in-house by any means. But companies are starting to explore options about where they can cut costs. And I will say to any of the partners who are watching this or any customers too, if you're looking for ways to cut costs and you're outsourcing payroll, bringing it in-house can be, it can be different, but it's doing it in-house versus outsourcing. There are certain benefits that you can capture, and it's low-hanging fruit as far as ways to start saving costs. Normally, I shouldn't say normally, but what we've seen so far over the past year and a half is that the customers that we're seeing that have 100 to 500 employees that have several companies that might be outsourcing payroll, we're able to show them a cost, like a net cost benefit to switching in-house, anywhere from 24 to 36 months down the road, and that includes implementation costs. So there can be significant cost savings, and that seems to be one other fact. That's the other factor that's driving our growth right now.
Yeah, because even if you switch to outsource, you got to figure out how to integrate it back to the ERP system, and so there's a lot of costs and hassle and steps to consider. So, all right. So Whit, this is your contact information, right? For reaching out to you. So feel free to reach out to Whit, and thank you so much for joining us today and being part of our ISV talks. And I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.